Now, all about using a grunt call. I have taken several really nice bucks while using a grunt call. I remember the first one I got. This buck, I would say about 5 minutes earlier, before it came close to where I was, had been surprised and alarmed by my son Ken up on a big hill a little ways away. And that buck came down the hill, and before Ken had a chance to shoot at it, and it came in my direction. Now, meanwhile, a doe and fawn were feeding off to my left. And I was getting worried about them because the breeze was coming right toward me, and the way they were going, I thought maybe they're going to get behind me and then smell me, and maybe they'd get upset and snort or something like that, or bound away with their tail up. And I was getting a little worried about that. Well, all of a sudden I heard a deer coming down the frozen road. It's a forestry road. I could hear the hoofs clicking on that frozen road. And it came in my direction. Now I was kind of wondering, I got a doe and a fawn here. This could be a buck. And it stopped down on the road. I couldn't see it. There was a lot of hazel brush and trees and evergreens between me and the road. And there was a deer trail about 10 yards away on my right, coming up the hill to where I was. And then the doe and the fawn were over on this side. And then I said, well, I'm going to give this a try. It wasn't the first time. That's right. This was the second one. I give it a try. Now listen to this. Look at this call. It's got a plastic tube on one end like that. I suppose that was intended to kind of mellow the sound of the grunt, and the wooden part here. And it's made to be blown this way. But I quit using it that way. Listen to this. To me, that didn't sound very much like any buck grunt that I had ever heard before. It was kind of a little bit too raspy, a little bit too much noise. So one day I decided to try it this way, inhaling through this tube. And listen to this. That's beautiful. That's perfect. A sound like that lasts about 3 seconds. Is a perfect buck grunt. Now, I've taken 3 with this. Now, the first time it was early one morning, and I used my call, and immediately a doe walked out of a clump of spruces over on my right in a feeding area. And in the wintertime, it was the last day of the hunting season, and it was looking around wondering where that sound came from, and it turned and started going away. And so it couldn't see me make the move. I was sitting at ground level on a stool for the first time. And so it turned away, and it turned right around, about 100 feet away, and started marching right toward me. Well, as it came away from that spruce clump, this 8-point buck comes marching out of the spruce clump and stayed right behind it all the way up till it was only about 20 yards in front of me, the 2 deer. And it was one of the easiest shots I've ever had at a buck. Boy, have I been missing something here. Well, this other buck I want to tell you about, he was a big, huge buck. Great big. He was an 8-pointer, but he was well over 300 pounds. But anyway, he was down there on the road, and I was thinking it might be a buck. And all I did is do this once. I just went, and he was mad. He got on that trail, and you could hear him coming. I mean, he didn't grunt back. He just came marching up there kind of fast. He wasn't bounding. He was just walking rather fast, and he was, I think he was deliberately slashing at brush along the side of the trail as it came, because, boy, he was making plenty of noise with his antlers all the way up there. And then he stopped over on the trail. It was only about 10 yards away. Easy shot, got that big buck. Well, in those days, that was quite a few years ago. That was back 26 years ago when this was going on. And since that time, I'm not the only one in the gang using a call. Since that time, there have been too many bucks living in our country who have discovered, gee, that humans sitting in trees or on the ground can make that sound too, and I better be careful the next time I hear that sound, and they're being careful. And we aren't seeing near as many bucks being as careless about doing this. Now my son John, he got a 2.5-year-old buck last year, and he used his antlers. When he got to a stand, the thing was laying down right in front of the stand. He was on a rocky outcropping, it was right down front, and it hurt him coming, obviously, when it got really close, and walked out into the clear cut right in front of him. And then it decided to go south, or yeah, it was south. He was headed south, and it was a good-sized clear cut. And when it got a little ways away, John got out his rattling antlers and held him up. He was in a blind, natural blind on the ground. Held him up where this buck, if it looked back, would be sure to see those antlers. And then he rattled just a little bit, a little short bit, and intending to fool the buck into believing that what it heard was actually a couple other bucks. They're up there. Well, the little buck wasn't, this 2.5-year-old wasn't impressed. He was probably thinking, well, one of those is the big guy, and if he catches me here, I'm in trouble. So he left the area for a while. Well, a little while later, and the sun came up, and it was kind of nice, and then John heard a little sound, and there was the buck on his left, and it wandered out in front of him, and he got an easy shot and got the buck. So, in this case, the antlers covered up John's mistake. Well, it wasn't a mistake, it just made the buck think that, wow, that had to be bucks that made that sound, so I don't have to be worried, and so he came back. And so in this way, rattling antlers really helped. It helped to get that buck. And I do that with my call once in a while. You know, I'll be out as careful as I am about stepping quietly, lifting my feet well off the ground and putting my feet down lightly, especially when I'm within 100 yards of a stand site. Once in a while, snap, doggone dead branch got under my foot and I stepped on it and made a really loud snap. And every time since then when that happens, I always get out my call. I wear it handy all the time and do one of those. And if there was a deer over there that heard that, so, oh, it's another deer, it was a buck. So it can be useful in that way, even if they don't come running toward you the minute they hear that grunt. So anyway, those are two ways to call whitetails, and but use it. Don't be conservative in their use. The more you use it, the sooner every buck in that square mile where you hunt will recognize the sound. Either that, or they'll say, "Well, you got to be careful when you hear that. You better go downwind and check that out by a scent to make sure it's okay before you get in too close." So same way with the grunt call. You can overdo it, and when you overdo it, pretty soon it ain't going to work anymore. In fact, what it might do instead is say, every buck in the woods that's 2.5 years of age or older will say, "Oh, that sounds good, but I know that came from that guy with the white beard. Let's get out of here." And that, you can go for years and not see a buck after you use either of these where you've done a lot of it. So it's like fox hunting. You can use a predator call and catch foxes in an area, or take foxes in an area one after another. And then pretty soon you hardly see a fox anymore, and the next one you see is sitting on a ridge way over there out of range, yapping and yapping. Oh, I want to go close. It sounds like a dying rabbit. I want to get that dying rabbit. But I don't dare because I found out that humans are making that sound around here. So be conservative. Well, with that, now you're all set. Maybe you can get 2 or 3 really big bucks in your hunting area before they all get smart about what you're doing. And what I wanted to tell you about using a grunt call. Using them conservatively, you might get quite a number of bucks before they all get wise to you. But be careful with them, and stay well hidden and wear a head net. There you go. Good luck now.